Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Happy Wednesday, flight crew. So today we are embarking on a new journey and soaring into a new segment of the show. Welcome to Parks of the Future. Dad, are you ready to sit in the Imagineering chair today?
I am good and ready.
All right. So in Parks of the Future, we will spin the WED wheel to select an underused or forgotten corner of Walt Disney World from abandoned attractions to underutilized spaces. Then each of us will present our own blue sky concepts to reimagine the space into something brand new. It could be a ride, a show, or a restaurant to start. With a mix of creative dreaming and Imagineering details, we dive deep into the storytelling, design, and guest experience to bring new magic to life, one idea at a time. And if you didn't catch it, the WED wheel is a nod to Walter Elias Disney, as they use often an abbreviation throughout the Walt Disney Company. At the end of each episode, we will spin the wheel for the next Parks of the Future episode to tell us what type of theme we will dream up next. But then you, as the listeners, will vote on Instagram or in the comments of Spotify or YouTube to tell us which spaces you want to see us revamp. Today, for our first Parks of the Future episode, we are heading over to the Magic Kingdom into Tomorrowland, to a space that has been abandoned for quite some time now, the old home of Stitch's Great Escape and the extraterrestrial alien encounter. So, first, let's spin the wheel to see what we will be dreaming up for today's episode. Okay, so the first thing we'll be doing is a ride. So, this space, giving you guys a little bit of history of this space and what's been here and kind of where it's at today. So, the show building in the northern section of Tomorrowland that most recently housed Stitch's Great Escape has a rich and evolving history, having served as the home for four distinct attractions over the decades. Its story begins in the late 1960s with Flight to the Moon, an immersive experience reflecting the era's fascination with lunar exploration during the height of the space race. As public interest in moon missions waned, the attraction was reimagined to Mission to Mars, updating the concept to align with new frontier in space travel. In the mid 1990s, the space underwent a dramatic transformation with the debut of the extraterrestrial alien encounter, widely regarded as one of the most intense and daring attractions ever introduced in a Disney park. It pushed the boundaries of Tomorrowland theme by offering a dark, suspenseful, and often frightening encounter with hostile alien creatures. While it earned a cult following for its bold storytelling, its intensity proved to be too much for many guests, myself included. Seeking a more family-friendly alternative, Disney rethemed the attraction in 2004 as Stitch's Great Escape, featuring the mischievous alien from Lilo and Stitch in a toned-down comedic version of the previous experience. Now, despite the recognizable character and lighter tone, the attraction really failed to resonate with audiences to the same degree, and its popularity steadily declined. Eventually, Stitch's Great Escape closed for good in 2018. This succession of attractions highlights Disney's ongoing efforts to refresh and redefine Tomorrowland's identity, shifting from realistic space exploration to sci-fi thrills, and finally to character-driven experiences, all within the same physical space. But now it remains empty, with a terrifying Broke Stitch animatronic sitting in the darkness. So, Dad, any thoughts about this lack of use of this space in Tomorrowland?
Well, I remember going to the flight to the moon. I think when it first opened back in the day. I never saw Mission Tomorrow. I was not sure what it's called, but it was a Mars mission. Same idea, except they're just flying you to Mars.
Yeah.
And of course, Alien Encounter. I really like that. I know it freaked you out. I took you on that when you were probably a little too young, like I probably did a lot of attractions. But yeah, that Stitch, I never that's a attraction that I just never really got into. I'm not a big Stitch fan. Some people either really love Stitch or they hate Stitch. So I didn't really care for that. It was definitely a toned down alien encounter kind of thing. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a place that now it's now it's just used for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party as a treat, a trick or treat lane, or what do they call that? A treat lane.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the last time I walked through there. It was kind of weird a few years back when we went to the Halloween party. So it's a great location. Why it's sitting, dormant for so long, and that's a long time. 2018, 7 years, it's still sitting there with really no plans that I know of to do anything with the space. I haven't heard of anything anyway. You think that it's a great space, so I hope they do something with it soon, and I know we have some ideas. So
Yeah, it is interesting with all these announcements that we've had, especially for the Magic Kingdom in the last 2 years, that they've mentioned nothing about this space. And there's been
right,
a lot of rumors about across the street from this, where Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor sits, that will potentially be moving out of there into Monstropolis when that opens in Hollywood Studios. So that would leave that empty as well. And with
right,
the
right.
redo of Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, I'm surprised that they, are revamping that ride. It might need it, but while this sits empty, it's very interesting. Yeah, I think another thing that a lot of people have brought up is the fact that over in Disneyland, Tomorrowland has a lot of vacancies as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know why it doesn't get enough love if they just don't have enough ideas, which is hard for me to believe with the amount of Imagineers and, talent that they have in the Imagineering world that they couldn't come up with something for this. But yep, like you said, we do have some ideas today ourselves. So we are going to bring those to life for y'all to see what you guys think about these different attractions that we have to propose. So, according to my very precise measurements on Google Earth, the approximate square footage of this space, if you remove anti-gravities, Star Traders, and Merchant of Venus, would be about 41,734 square feet. So let's say 40,000 square feet approximately, just to make the math a little easier. Other attractions that are similar to this, so Winnie the Pooh is approximately 35,000 square feet when I measured the show building, while the Little Mermaid is more like 47,000 square feet with the show building and queue. The Barnstormer is about 20,000 square feet, so it's something kind of closer to Pooh that we'll have to really work with here. So different concepts. We're each going to kind of pitch our own idea and then get into a little details. But I'll go ahead and start with my pitch, kind of talking about what it is. Is it a story and theme, an IP tie-in, or an original experience, and why it would fit into Tomorrowland, as well as what is kind of the hook or wow factor for the attraction. So, my attraction is an IP pick, which was good contrast for dads because we'll get to it in a minute. And I am going with Big Hero 6, which is a futuristic but truly underrated and underused IP in the Disneyverse. The reason I think this would work really well is that people love Big Hero 6 and absolutely love Baymax as a character. So far, the only representation of these characters in the parks across the world is at Disney California Adventure in Anaheim with the entire San Fransokyo land, but there are really only restaurants, albeit delicious ones, and a Baymax meet and greet. Disney Tokyo has an attraction, but it's basically that alien swirling saucers ride with Baymax instead, which is pretty lame-o. It's not very exciting at all. So for those of you who are not familiar with Big Hero 6, like Dad, you have not seen this movie, is that right?
I have not.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of people don't. It's not as common as a lot of the other like mainstream movies, but the plot is kind of as follows, just for a brief point here. Big Hero 6 is a sci-fi action adventure about a brilliant teenage inventor named Hiro Hamada who teams up with a lovable healthcare robot named Baymax and a group of tech-savvy friends to form a high-tech superhero team. Set in the futuristic city of San Fransokyo, the team must stop a mysterious villain using Hiro's stolen microbot technology. It's a story about grief, friendship, and using science for good. Again, very underrated movie. It has a really cool message. It's got that futuristic kind of world with this healthcare robot that kind of helps to take care of people and inventing these microbots. So that's why I think it could work really well in Tomorrowland. So before we get a little bit deeper into my attraction, Dad, do you want to tell us what your kind of basic concept for your attraction is without the major details first.
Well, I started thinking about this, and coming up with a new ride is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to give the Imagineers credit because it really is. And I always thought of myself as a relatively creative person. But then I started, and it took me a long time to really come up with something that was not like a clone of something else, or uh, it was just a little bit different. But my idea was to come up with something like, and I'll just use the name, even though it's I guess it is an IP, but it's definitely not a Disney IP. Something like a Top Gun attraction, where it would, I guess I won't get into all the details, but it would be some sort of flight simulator. And I don't know if you could, again, Top Gun, I realize there's a military aspect there, there's a war aspect. Be like, oh, that's not Disney, but we know the military's there, makes our country strong, and people that are in the service and everything. Some people might agree with that or not, but that makes really makes our country strong and safe and secure by having a big military. So I guess tying in with that, the whole Top Gun, the movie was popular, but maybe they call it something else, but it'd be about flying a fighter jet, and maybe to make it Tomorrowland-ish, it could be a fighter jet that is more in the future, because they're always coming up with new ideas and new designs. Every 5 years they got a different type of fighter jet. So yeah, so that's kind of the concept I came up with for that area.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think that kind of sticks with the theme of the original attraction there with the flying to the moon and then flying to Mars, kind of sticking with the theme
Right,
of
right.
flight can
Hmm.
definitely fit in the Tomorrowland area. So, and even over where Buzz used to be, the Delta Dream Flight, or wasn't that what it was called? Delta Dream Flight or something like that?
Yes, yes, huh?
So yeah, definitely flight and everything is very fitting for Tomorrowland. So that's very cool. Okay, so to get into the Imagineering details and kind of the breakdown of the attractions. So for my attraction, we're going to kind of talk through things like what kind of ride system we would envision, or are we going to create a new one, the vehicle design, and about what the calculation would be for the total hourly ride capacity. So how many people would kind of be going through this attraction per hour to kind of give people an idea. And I'm utilizing our friend Steven at Idiot's Guide to Imagineering. They have an amazing podcast where they come up with new ideas for attractions, shows, resorts every single week. It's awesome. And Steven has an awesome Excel sheet of what similar rides at Disney World would be. So what their total hourly ride capacity is. So we can kind of bounce off of some of his things that he has drawn from different areas to kind of calculate what approximately we think this could be, as well as is there going to be a queue or pre-show, and kind of what we would need to change to the exterior, if anything, from how the building looks now to where it would fit with our attraction. So, my attraction, to kind of take you through it, the ride name that I came up with was Baymax City Rescue. And this was going to be a traditional kind of dark ride type of ride. The ride system would be a fixed track, small capacity ride vehicles, about 6 riders per car, kind of similar to the car chase scene in the Big Hero 6 movie. For those of y'all who have seen it, it'll be like a van from the movie and can have different colored vans, and the license plate can have different nods to the movie to kind of make them each a little bit unique, similar to the different license plates that we see on Rock and Roller Coaster that each kind of mean something fun with little nods to music like they do. So the footprint, again, we talked about 40,000 square feet. So I'm probably going to be using up every square foot possible for this attraction and its queue. The target audience, I really wanted to make this available to any age with no height requirement, family friendly with thrilling movements, but nothing too scary that kids would be really afraid of it. So the storyline kind of behind the ride is you're a visitor at the San Fransokyo Institute of Technology, where Hiro is testing his latest invention, the SFIT Rescue Rover, which is a personal rescue vehicle guided by Baymax himself. What starts as a fun test flight through the city quickly turns into a real emergency when a mysterious villain hijacks the city's tech grid, causing chaos across San Fransokyo. You join Hiro, Baymax, and the rest of Big Hero 6 on a fast-paced rescue mission through the city's streets, labs, tunnels, and more. So really kind of having this front and back jerky dynamic motion. You're controlled, or it seems like you're controlled by this AI Baymax voice system with this audio that kind of interacts with the riders. And vehicles will be equipped with these little interactive panels similar to Millennium Falcon, but they won't actually do anything. So on Millennium Falcon, when you press the button, it simulates what's happening in the rocket ship. These will just light up and it will seem like what you're pressing is doing something, but it's more just for fun and making people feel like they're interacting. So each rider in the car will have about 2 to 3 buttons that will light up at certain points that they'll be, notified by the AI Baymax to push things. So there'll be like a rescue button, a scan button, and an override button. Simple feedback like light, sound, and movement will make riders really feel like part of the action without the digital screens, but nothing actually happens with this. Like I said, they're just kind of for fun. Multiple forks in the track will also be a part of the attraction, so it'll allow for alternate paths, although they do eventually merge. So, kind of 2 different paths that they can split off of. You can choose this high altitude route over the city at one point, that's kind of faster and windy, or stay on the street level chase kind of through close calls and different destruction type things. And it will be randomized per ride, which will kind of help with re-rideability and making people want to go so they can get the opposite of what they've had before. So, looking at the different ride scene breakdown, the first scene, or kind of the loading area, was going to be Hiro's lab, where the queue winds through his workshop with projections and physical models. Hiro gives an intro via monitor saying, "You're testing my SFIT rescue rover," and Baymax will kind of talk to you saying something like, "Hello, I am Baymax, your personal flight navigator." The second scene, you kind of move into the test flight beginning. You see all these city streets and rooftops. Baymax is soaring overhead in projection and gets past all these mirrors or fans for like fun little effects, similar to like the Heffalump area in Winnie the Pooh. Go, the little AI area, will call out via speaker, "Heads up, something is wrong." There will be flickering city lights, malfunctioning drones, microbots, those little inventions that Hiro's working on will swarm and form on the walls using projection mapping. Guests will be told to hit scan to identify the threat, and then they will see this animatronic scene of trapped citizens kind of calling for help. You'll have to use your rescue button to deploy Baymax's arms, and then there will be visual feedback where the rescued citizens will say thank you kind of in the next part, and you'll move on. This is where the split will happen. So you'll either do the emergency detour of a skyscraper dash up on the top of the buildings, or a subway chase kind of simulating as if you were going down, even though you won't be. The next scene, you'll go into the villain's hideout where he'll be an animatronic kind of blocking the microbots. Guests will have to use override to continue on. There'll be all these flickering lights and other animatronic villains that taunt the riders. Baymax will tell you to please remain calm. We're experiencing turbulence. Scene 6 will be the final rescue, where Big Hero team comes together to stop the villain, with guests initiating the very last override button needed to destroy the microbot core and the villains. There will be explosive lights and music will kind of, come to this big ending. And then in scene 7 will be the little debrief where Baymax says, "You successfully completed the rescue mission. Are you satisfied with your care?" Which is kind of what he says throughout the Big Hero 6 movie. So Big Hero 6 kind of cheers you on from the final city square, and then you exit the ride. So that's kind of what I was envisioning, similar to these dark rides where you kind of go throughout the movie or throughout different scenes. This won't necessarily be directly from the movie, but will be similar enough, and have a little bit of its own story, but also have some pieces and elements that people would recognize from the movie if they're fans. And if they're not fans, I think they still would enjoy it. So as far as like calculations for vehicles and everything, I think there would be maybe 9 or 10 total vehicles on the track. The dispatch usually takes about 20 to 30 seconds when I was kind of thinking about this and looking stuff up online. And there'll be one vehicle at a time dispatching, just like Winnie the Pooh or Mr. Toads or anything like that. There will be about 144 dispatches per hour. And then, according to this, it would be similar to Winnie the Pooh, which is looking to be about 864 guests per hour. So it would take a good number of people out of Tomorrowland if we're trying to come up with a new attraction to help with crowds, help with people that are all filtering to basically the three main rides in Tomorrowland right now, Buzz, Space Mountain, and Tron. And it'll also give something for people to do who might have little ones that can't go on some of these height restriction rides. So that was kind of what I was thinking as far as the actual attraction. So before I get into the queue and pre-show, do you have any feedback, Dad, or questions about anything?
Well, we can tell all the listeners that my daughter uh, goes all out planning vacations, and she goes all out planning rides. That's pretty impressive. No, I think it's great. I'm sitting here going, well, mine's not quite that thought out, but
That's
that, that's really good. That makes perfect sense. No, I think, and I think that Tomorrowland is kind of starving for something like that. You think of Fantasyland, even at Disneyland, as you know really well, right? There are attractions there. There's so many more attractions in Fantasyland over there. I know their Tomorrowland's kind of dead, but it makes it so much more special to be able to walk through the scenes, or I'm sorry, be in a ride vehicle through all these scenes of all these different movies. And a lot of those are from movies from way back when,
yeah.
Pinocchio and Alice and everything. But to have something a little more current like that and a ride through like that in Tomorrowland, they don't have that. So that would be super cool. I think no, it's very well. That's very well thought out. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think it just is really, like you said, something that's needed. And Disneyland does have so many more dark rides. And I know a lot of people think they're kind of old school or not something that a lot of people care about, but I still love the dark rides. I really enjoy them. And I think they're a great option for kids to do
Yes.
while, parents are swapping out on those bigger rides over in Tomorrowland. So as far as like a queue and pre-show, after listening to our queue review episodes that we love interactive queues. So because this attraction will take up a lot more space than its previous attraction in my world, the queue really won't be able to be as interactive as I would like something like, if we're going really interactive, like Rise of the Resistance or something like that. But the queue will be in a newly enclosed area where the people mover track is basically the base for how far out the building will be bumped. So instead of the people mover being overhead in some sections, it will now go over the top of that building. That way, everything is air conditioned, which is one of our top priorities when we're reviewing queues and our queue review episode. And the queue will begin the story that you're kind of entering the San Francisco Institute of Technology through the front doors of the university. And you'll be walking past labs, kind of similar vibes to one of my favorite attractions, one of Dad's least favorite attractions, Figment over in Epcot, where you're walking past and see like people kind of doing things behind the doors. So some ideas to make it interactive so the wait doesn't feel as long: wall projections of San Fransokyo scenes in the windows that kind of face the outdoors that react when guests wave or move, like Baymax popping up or something like that. Some small touch sensitive panels or screens where kids can scan for microbots. And then envisioning a queue kind of similar to Monsters Inc. attraction in the Disney California adventure that's sadly going away soon, but the winding pattern kind of past doors and through hallways. There also can be a small interactive kiosk where guests can kind of quote unquote check their vitals with Baymax before they're able to start today's mission through fun little sensors or buttons, kind of similar to Flight of Passage where they scan you before you get on the ride. But the outside really wouldn't have to change a ton when you look at the attraction and how it was when it was Stitch's Great Escape. When that was still up and running, I would really envision it being all walled in, but the marquee being at the same location, and Stitch would have to be replaced with a little animatronic Baymax of some sort, and it would say Baymax City Rescue. But the exterior walls could be painted with a mural of like futuristic San Fransokyo or something to make it less plain, and little Baymax like assistants kind of flying through the world. And there's a lot of merchandise options and expansion opportunities for having this IP over there since it's such a unique use of the Big Hero 6 IP in Disney World. There could be a lot of fun ways to use the IP and have unique things like Baymax riding Space Mountain on a pin, or Tron or Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin, things like that that they could work it into the Tomorrowland feel and give you a little bit more merch that doesn't exist. So yeah, they could also find a space for a Baymax meet and greet here as well, or alternate him with Buzz over by Carousel of Progress. So yeah, that's kind of my entire idea. Definitely think that Big Hero 6 could be used. It hasn't been used a lot. So that could be something that maybe they consider. But Dad, let's get into your idea. So tell us a little bit about your attraction, kind of the ride vehicle system, the target audience. Would there be a height requirement, and kind of what you're envisioning for the ride to look like?
Sure. Again, I won't be as detailed as what you did, what you did is awesome. Uh, but I'm just going to use these titles only because, and I'm sure it's the IP. Disney probably has enough money; they could go buy the Top Gun IP if they wanted to. But it would be something like the Top Gun experience. So it would have a height requirement. This ride will probably won't be like is it Mission Space and Epcot?
Yeah.
Um, it won't be that bad, but it's not going to be far off.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, so yeah, so you're looking for a hurl machine, but to do it right, you have to have that type of simulators. And my thought is, it's kind of like Soarin meets Star Tours,
Okay.
and I know that's going to be great on your stomach, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that idea where you would basically be in a fighter jet simulator, there'd be you and then someone back behind you, like there is in a lot of fighter jets. I'm not an expert, but watch enough watch enough movies, and the person behind you is sitting up a little bit higher, so they'll have good vision too. And instead of having some sort of, I guess, fight scene like a dog fight, where they're chasing after some other country, China or Russia or whoever you might think would be the enemy. It's something totally different. So it kind of gets them out of that whole political problem they might have
Yeah.
with that. And it would be kind of like a routine flight, kind of not a training flight, but pretty much a flight where they're on. They're just traveling maybe across the North Pole or something, or going they going up very high. I'm thinking 30, 40 miles up, maybe even higher, almost to the edge of space, and they encounter some sort of UFO. And so basically you're going to be trying to engage a UFO. So it kind of takes the whole military shoot down some other country's plane right out of the picture. They're
Yeah.
just out there on surveillance. And when they're doing that, you would have one person be the gunner, and the other person is flying the. You'd have a joystick or whatever in there, and you're flying the aircraft. And the fun part about it is you have, again, like a Soarin type ride where you have a screen, but each screen is going to be an individual screen. It won't be everybody won't have the same screen. So there'll be like 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever different experiences that you can have. So it's very re-rideable. And you would basically bank your jet. You can rotate your jet all the way around. That's going to be the puke factor, I guess, in
Oh
this one.
yeah.
You can well, I guess they basically just call that a roll, or you bank it, and there's some G's involved too. Maybe not quite as bad as Mission Space, but that kind of feel. So it's almost like a simulator that they use for the Air Force. And then these would be stacked side by side, and so when you're banking or rolling, you probably set it up so you would roll somehow in sequence. So you'd be rolling with a group of planes together, and the whole idea would be to shoot down the UFO, and that's the idea. Not just try to, and a lot of UFOs that we've heard about over the years. They're incredibly fast, they're incredibly shifty. It'd be just a real hard to do, but there'd be points that would be scored or whatever. Again, I haven't thought it all out, but I thought something like that, I experienced like that. That kind of comes back to the alien encounter that was really kind of scary, kind of freaked you out, but this has a whole simulator movement type thing that has become very popular in the last 10 15 years. So yeah, that's my thought with that. Throughput, you'd have to go on your friend's spreadsheet probably to get a throughput. I didn't take it that far, but probably a very comparable throughput as like a Soarin type attraction would be my guess. You'd have probably a couple of rooms designated if we used all that square footage. As far as queue, I would probably keep the queue relatively simple. I thought maybe you would have some different things, some different screens on each side of the queue as you're going through, kind of talking about you're out doing this surveillance and reconnaissance work and kind of talking about it, but not really giving away what's going to happen. And have different fighter jets, maybe from World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, right on through all the uh, different types of aircraft, too. Pictures of all the different types of aircraft, all the way through the queue, also. So you kind of see the whole, all the different generations of aircrafts that we've devised over the past, geez, 75 years. So yeah, something like that. And again, there would be a height requirement for it. There'd have to be, and you'd be strapped in just like a fighter pilot, and away you go.
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds super cool. And I like the use of not keeping it, keeping it away from the politics and making it just about the UFO, not about some
You,
country or
you almost have
something.
to, yeah. These days, you almost have to. Walt might have been gone down that road in 1955 or 60, but these days, it's probably a real bad idea. So,
Yeah, exactly. And then the height requirement for Millennium Falcon, the height requirement is 38 inches. But since we're doing barrel rolls, you probably have to have some kind of like over the shoulder, like almost like rock and roller coaster
yes,
harness.
yeah, you'd have to be strapped in somehow like that, so you can actually do a full roll, and it's something that they could have where they actually want to do the roll, or you don't have to do the roll, but maybe to chase down the UFO, there's times where you'd have to do a roll. And again, people would have to learn. Well, oh, that was really fun, or oh, let's not do those rolls anymore because we're getting sick. So they'd have
Yeah.
some control of that. It's just not like flopping you around like on Star Tours. It's just kind of a free for all. You'd have control of what your fighter jet was doing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that sounds super fun. And each person having a task, and like you said, each person's screen potentially being a little bit different or having
Yeah,
different sequences or something that would make it rewritable. So,
exactly.
yeah, that would be super cool. Okay, cool. I like that idea. And I like that it's not IP. I think like having things like or I mean, it is if you do the Top Gun, but like you said, if it's Top Gun similar, Top Gun-esque,
Yeah, it could be
um,
called something totally different. It don't have to be called Top Gun, but that's just the type of jet, this type of feel that it was going for lack of a better title at this point.
okay, cool. Yeah, we'll have to think about a title, but that sounds awesome. So, yeah, very good. So these are just a couple of our unique ideas that we have for this space. I mean, it's like we talked about, it's a really underutilized space for being such a big empty area for so long. And although in our ideas we did take out things like the, couple of little building, the anti-gravity's galactic goodies and Mickey Star Traders Merchant of Venus, we took those things out just to make a little more room for our attraction. And for dads, you could even go up and the people mover could go kind of around the outside of it still without interrupting that track. But thinking of a taller building with having these simulators kind of go above each other in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that would be super cool. Hey, flight crew, it's us from the future. So, of course, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't stay up all night thinking about how we could make this fighter jet attraction work without using the Top Gun IP and still having it in Tomorrowland. So, with a little bit of help from the internet, trying to think of what other Disney movies had a fighter jet or pilot in it, it helped me out by finding out that Captain Marvel actually is a fighter jet type character pilot. And that's a movie that I'm not that familiar with. I know Maddie has seen it. He's a big Marvel guy, but I'm not that into Marvel. I've seen some of the movies, but definitely not all the recent ones. And I love Brie Larson, who plays Captain Marvel, but this was not something that I thought about. So once I got that, it kind of helped me brainstorm a little bit more. So here's what I kind of came up with as a tagline for Dad's Attraction. So it could be called SkyStrike Alien Intercept. And the host would be Captain Aurora Vance, played by Brie Larson. And she could do a little pre-show in a waiting area, similar to Soarin' right before you board, where it says something like, "Pilots, glad you made it. I'm Captain Aurora Vance, flight leader, Nova Defense Initiative. And in about 4 minutes, you'll be flying Earth's most advanced combat jet against something not from Earth." And then it could go into more details about what to expect. This would take up about half of the space of Flight of Passage because Flight of Passage, the show building, looked about 80,000 square feet. So this ride, we also could find a way to enhance and stack vehicles like we talked about last week. So thinking that this could put out like 800 to 1,000 people an hour, which would be a little low. We'd have to kind of figure out the space constraint. But another idea that I thought about was we talked about mission space. We could also do two different paths where one path is more like an interceptor blue per se, and that would have like no barrel rolls, limited movement, and a lower height requirement, more like 40 inches. Then we also could do an interceptor red where you could do barrel rolls. I know we talked about having control of it, full aerial maneuvers, and that could be a higher height requirement of like 44 or 48 inches or something. So just some things that I talked about. Have you ever seen Captain Marvel, Dad? I'm guessing not.
I have not. I was a big Captain America fan when I was a kid. I've seen some of those movies, but Captain Marvel is a female.
Yeah, I don't know in the comics that she was a female, but I think they made her a female for the movies.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. I that's how much I know. I didn't know if she was in the comics or the movies. But then you said, oh, she, and that, okay. But yeah, I don't know anything about Captain Marvel at all. So that would be a good fit.
Yeah, yeah. So just something to consider. So when y'all are listening back to this episode, just had to insert this in here to kind of give y'all a little bit more of a description. And now we'll head back into our regularly scheduled programming. So we want to hear what you guys think. We want to hear, listeners, what do you guys think about these concepts? Are these things that you have thought of as far as what you would do with this empty space? Would you ride these attractions? Would you like to come and sit in the fighter jet or join Hiro and Big Hero 6 with Baymax through the city? We love to have some different ideas, and I love how different these two attractions were. So definitely want to know what you guys think and which attraction you would love to come and see in this section of the park. So we also want to hear what your suggestions are. You can either email us at soarinaroundwdwpod@gmail.com or DM us on social media for shout outs in future episodes. On our next Parks of the Future episode, I'm going to spin the wheel now for what type of attraction it will be or what type of experience it will be between a show, a ride, or a dining experience. And then I will put up a poll on our Instagram and our stories so that you all can vote on where in Disney World an empty or underutilized space. I'll give you all some options that you want us to build that experience. So look out for the poll on Instagram, which will come out on Fridays, kind of after these Parks of the Future episodes, to give you guys a few days to listen before I put up the voting. So putting out the wheel here. So since we just did a ride, I'm going to get rid of that as the option. So this will be between a show or an experience for our next Parks of the Future episode when we get to that in a little while, in a few weeks. So let me spin the wheel here. Thinking about it. Okay, so a show. So we'll have to come up with some kind of show for an underutilized space. So I'll have to look at some empty theaters or some empty spaces that could have a theater, and I will give y'all 4 options to vote on the Instagram. And these episodes will kind of be sprinkled in. We're not doing a bunch of the same thing at once. We're trying to bring you different things. We just did our queue review. We have nostalgic nights. We have these Parks of the Future episodes. I know coming up, we're going to do a pre-show episode where we talk about the best and worst pre-shows kind of throughout the parks. We have some different Disney Legends type episodes that we've thought about and come up. And then I know different things that we've talked about too are like a relax, take it easy episode where we talk about kind of more chill spaces throughout the park that Dad kind of came up with. So more chill rides, chilled restaurants, quiet spaces, ways to have a relaxing day within the park. So look out for all of those things now that will be coming. And if you aren't already, please make sure you are subscribed or following us, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. But before we head out, we are going to quickly do our Would You Rather for this week from our friend Laura at Happily Ever Laura on Instagram. Laura promotes travel and lifestyle clubs with savings, discounts, and free trips. So find out more about what she does over on her Instagram, and we will tag her in this week's Would You Rather post. So for her question, she asked, would you rather get stuck on Haunted Mansion or Spaceship Earth for an hour? I know your answer.
Even though those are some of my 2 top attractions, Haunted Mansion's number 1. Spaceship Earth is right up there. It would definitely be Haunted Mansion. I'd be looking at everything and reanalyzing everything I did since I was 10 years old and saw it for the first time at Disneyland. So, and I've been stuck in that a few times. I know you have too.
Yep.
over the years, if it's raining or breaks down or whatever, and you're stuck in it. But Yeah, have to be Haunted Mansion for me.
I agree. I also like Spaceship Earth, but I do think the Haunted Mansion Dune buggies are slightly more comfortable. Hopefully, we're not stuck going backwards down the ramp at that one
Yeah,
part for an hour. Because, I
that'd be
mean, I guess
bad.
you could
Yeah,
take a nap. But is there a room within Haunted Mansion you'd want to get stuck in the most? That would be the most entertaining.
hands down, got to be the graveyard.
Yeah, that was my
It's
first thought too.
got to be the graveyard. And I had a postcard. I got a postcard. I don't know if I mentioned this on another podcast, but actually, I'll have to find it. I have a postcard that I bought. This is back when postcards were a thing, back in 1970,
Yeah.
before email and all those things. You sent a postcard to somebody. I have a postcard of the little band. There's three people that are the ghosts that are playing. Playing a trumpet and
Yeah.
that part. I have a postcard of those guys that I still have in one of my drawers somewhere from 1970. That's a long time ago, but
Oh,
I always thought
wow.
that was so cool. The whole graveyard scene was so well done. And and some point we'll have to talk about some of take an attraction is break that down too. That'd be another fun way to another fun thing to discuss on a podcast also.
Oh yeah, definitely. So much to discuss in that ride. That'd be cool. You'll have to send me a picture of that postcard so I can post it for people. That would be really neat.
I'll have to
Well,
find it. Yep.
yeah, cool. Well, if you want your Would You Rather to be featured on the podcast, please send me a DM or comment on one of our Would You Rather posts, or you can also send us an email at soarinaroundwdwpod@gmail.com. We would love to feature your question and your account and tell our listeners a little bit more about you and what you're all about too. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep imagining, and we will catch you on our next flight.
See you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at SoarinAroundWDWPod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into our old versus new debates. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And for our Spotify listeners, a follow and a 5-star review would mean the world. If you're listening on Apple, hit that 5-star button and leave us a written review as well. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.